Hey everybody, and welcome back to Momentous Inspiration. We're here with round two of the Raleigh Warm-Up, featuring the Butchers, played by John Stokes, and the Morticians, played by Dixon Tiru. Here with me today, we've got somebody I haven't had before, Steve Knott, a local Raleigh player.
Hey guys, I'm a local Raleigh player, play Butchers. Primarily as of late, just played nothing but Vet Boar, but before that, been an Ox player.
I don't understand why are you playing so much Vet Boar?
Because Butchers are now a one captain team.
I, I, yeah, I'm not gonna argue. I don't have any argument. I was trying, but I just gave up. So I got Steve to come in because I don't have any butcher's experience, and I wanted to expand out our crowd a little bit too. Make sure that we're getting a variety of people in. So for our game today, Dixon took the plot card or the game plans of Seeds the Initiative, fullback, midfield general, get back in there, and won't touch the hair.
And Stokes took Lone Striker, Grudge Match, go for the knees, keep the ball moving, and keep your chin up.
And on the roll off, Stokes won the roll, and he elected to go ahead and receive.
That's typically not something that I personally, against this matchup, I probably would like to kick to get my long threats up, but I want to see what Stokes has in plan here.
Well, it is worth mentioning that this was the first day that Stokes had really played Butchers at all. He is typically a Hunters player, a very good Hunters player.
This is true.
So there was a little bit of experimentation going on for him here. He didn't have everything like down to a T and everything developed the way that he probably would after a few more games. So for the draft, Dixon selected Obulus and Vileswarm, Bonesaw, Vet Graves, Pelage, and Casket.
And Stokes chose Vet Boar, Princess, Boiler, O Brisket, Vet Ox, and Vet Gutter.
So in one of the non-recorded games today, I actually played Dixon, and this is a very similar lineup to what he took in that matchup, except that he had Gast and Vet Hemlock instead. But he also took this identical matchup or this identical squad into Glenwood in round 5, so it's pretty typical for him. But what do you think about the Vet Boar squad?
I really like the Vet Boar squad. Um, I like having Boiler extending threat ranges, especially without in this particular tournament we didn't have access to Cinnamon.
Yep.
Boiler is also a good uh, berserking target.
I was surprised by no Shank though, because he's really popular.
Yeah, and Vet Gutter, while really good on the legendary, I haven't really found her as good as Shank in just having the extremely long threat range that Shank does. I mean, he just goes for miles,
No, that
and
makes.
and then he's got early momentous damage of 1 and 2 on 1 and 2.
Yep. All right, so darting in really quick since we're at kickoff here. Bonesaw's kicking from top to bottom for Dixon. It's Bonesaw, Obulus, Pelage, Vet Graves, Vileswarm, and Casket.
And on Stokes' side, it looks like he's got Boiler starting from the bottom: Boiler, Princess, Vet Boar, Vet Gutter, O Brisket, and Vet Ox.
So we're going to see 4 on Bonesaw, 5 on Obulus, 1 on Pelage, 2 on Vet Graves, and 1 on Casket for Dixon.
And John Stokes has 3 on Vet Ox, 2 on O Brisket, 3 on Gutter, 2 on Vet Boar, and 3 on Boiler.
And not to interrupt you here really quick, but Brisket just sprinted and then passed the ball back to the dog and then dodged the dog back to keep the ball away from Bonesaw.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so now Dixon's looking at what he's going to do just to get us caught back up with the time one, because turn one always moves really quickly.
Yeah.
But Dixon's going to take Bonesaw. He's going to take his stamina, jog up to Ox, and he is actually going to take 4 swings on him, 3 of them with bonus time. So he only builds one momentum. He repeatedly push dodges Ox and comes within 1 inch of pushing Ox off of the board edge. He never quite hits the unexpected arrival. Unfortunately for him, I think that Stokes was not quite as unhappy about that.
Oh, absolutely not. But I mean, a standing unexpected arrival is pretty not likely with Bonesaw,
With the
even on a
bonus
3-1.
time, it came to about 33% odds. I looked it up later.
Yeah.
So he was hoping across the course of 4 attacks. It's not great odds, but he had a decent chance.
Yeah. It just puts Bonesaw in a really bad spot for
Yeah.
not for such a low chance of hitting that.
Dixon tended. Oh, here we go. Sorry, it's Vedox next. Oh,
So
you?
Vedox walks up and decides to swing on Bonesaw as a little retaliation for his attempt to push him off the pitch, and does 7 damage after lash out.
And he gains 3 momentum off that. If I'm not mistaken, is Vedox he caps out at 3, right?
Vedox does cap out at 3 influence.
Yeah, so he just got the 3 momentum off of that. And then Dixon just sprints Casket. Just getting him out in front of everybody a little bit.
Then Francisco, she drops the ball to Boiler. Boiler snaps the ball.
And Vile Swarm jogs, and back to John.
So, looks like he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with Gutter. And I think he's measuring out a counter onto Pelage.
Well, and also keeping an eye out on that Obulus coming up puppet mastering and
Yes.
dragging somebody forward.
That's always Obulus is kind of a pain.
Oh yeah.
So here he buys Bloodlust and swings. Just looks like he's trying to generate as much momentum as he can off these attacks.
Yeah, being able to have that trade and get all those extra attacks is not a bad thing.
Not at all. So he's able to generate some extra momentum and take out Bonesaw.
Kills Bonesaw in 3 attacks. He just decided it wasn't worth chancing, trying to get just in case he missed on the Berserk, but leaves the momentum at 2-7 in favor of Butchers and the score at 2-0 for Butchers. I think that he's perfectly happy to start that way.
I would be.
So we had a Pelage sprint.
And then this is very unfortunate. Boiler misses his pass to Boar. I mean, good thing he didn't move before he passed, and then he was able to make another pass. But missing that pass just hurts.
He was hoping to pass the ball and then I think go up and probably land a marked target on Casket.
Yeah.
Which opens up Casket for the turn 1 Boar. Maybe not annihilation, but definitely the pain train.
Oh, I think Boar ends Casket, and maybe even Vile Swarm at that point.
It depends. He might or might not. He might not want to. Is the thing I was thinking of. He might want to leave him on 1 for the next turn.
Yeah. It just still puts him in a bad place.
Oh, absolutely. So Obulus activates. He pops his legendary to soak all the momentum as he does, and Puppet Masters Vedox towards him.
Yeah, and that is one problem with Butchers versus Obulus is you don't want to get that high up on the momentum because that will hurt your feelings. Because Boar has a tendency to just be a momentum generating machine.
But at the same time, it gets the legendary out of the way on turn 1. I mean, It guarantees the turn 2, but you know exactly where you stand at that point, which is definitely a good point for him.
Yeah. So Vet Boar passed back to the dog. He banked the momentum, and he just sprinted up.
And then Vet Graves is just going to sprint towards the top of the board up to near Vedox. Dixon's just doing a little measuring for next turn. Having played Dixon, I know this was his MO pretty much the entire tournament that I saw. He likes to go in fast, try to get up. He uses Bonesaw extremely aggressively. Everything that I saw here was very in keeping with my game with him and with the game against Glenwood, but What'd you think for Stokes?
Stokes' play was, I think, really conservative for a vet boar player. I probably would have, knowing you were down on momentum going in, and he only had one activation left. I probably would have passed the ball, dodged boar up, and then went ahead and charged Casket to get him
Hmm.
in, or even charge Vile Swarm, knowing that you could kill Vile Swarm and then charge Casket at the top of the next turn,
Yeah.
and at least close that momentum gap.
Yeah, because I with only the charge and then one influence, I don't think Boar, unless he spikes all the way, he shouldn't be able to kill Casket. But he can
No,
certainly put a severe hurting on him.
yeah, and that's still four attacks. That's still on the charge on a 3-1. You're still generating um, four, if not five, momentum if he wraps on the charge.
Although Stokes also did get bad luck because Boar should have been 4 inches forward
Yeah,
um,
that's
earlier or had a marked target out there. So it, as much as I hate to say it, he also got pretty unlucky there too. That was just
yeah,
the wrong combination of things.
yeah. But I mean, bad combination. But he could have. I think he played real conservative with Vet Boar,
Yeah,
which I have a tendency to just think he's invincible and throw him into bad situations, and it backfires on me all the time. So he probably made the right play here.
I think that he did get the 2 points. Stokes got the 2 points turn one, but I mean it's pretty obvious exactly what Dixon's going for here with setting Vedox up to get kicked off the board.
Yeah,
Um,
and
so
it seemed to be when I played Dixon, he set up very similar, um, but I don't think he was expecting Shank to be just as aggressive as his Bonesaw.
yeah, that actually, if he missed that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense then because
Yep.
you can play Shank. You can play Shank as a fire and forget missile sometimes.
Yeah,
So for the game plans for round two, Dixon's going to play midfield general,
Stokes is going to play Keep Your Chin Up.
and Dixon had an 8-1 momentum lead, so he had full selection. It did not matter what he played.
No,
Um, he had that full choice, which that's obvious. I mean, especially when he legendaries across the to win the turn like that. And again, I don't know if Dixon did that to you or not, but it's very much his MO in my game.
no, he did not.
Oh, really?
No, he did not. He didn't end up legendarying at all during our game.
Oh, that's kind of a surprise. And since there's going to be a blank space here, one of the guys walked away to go buy a drink or something like that. I think one of them was using the bathroom, the things that happen mid tournament.
Yeah,
Um, no, he definitely was wanting to get. I think maybe he uses that legendary sort of when he knows that it'll get him the first activation for a kill then. But for Dixon, he brings Bonesaw back from the bottom, gives 4 to Vet Graves, 2 to Casket, 2 to Pelage, 4 to Obulus, and 1 to Bonesaw.
and Stokes gives 2 to Vet Boar, 4 to Gutter, 3 to Brisket, 1 to Boiler, and 3 to Vet Ox.
And what Dixon was measuring out right before this, at the end of the last turn, was measuring to see if he could get Vet Graves over onto the ice. So he's got a very, very quick Vet Graves in subsequent turns. And with that 4 momentum and Graves having double pushes, it should be pretty easy to push Ox off the board.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Graves jogs up to Vet Ox, who does counter, but he hits the knockdown. They ain't tough, so Ox is a 2-0. He bonus times twice. He does 3 damage from wrapping and gets 6 inches of pushes to go ahead and kick Ox off of the pitch. Momentum is at 2-0 for Dixon, and score is now tied 2-2.
So next, Stokes goes and Boiler tries to mark target Vet Graves and misses.
Yeah, it's what 66%. Vet Graves is a 3, but
Yeah.
it would have set Gutter or Brisket either one up nicely next turn. unfortunately, Boiler in the first couple of turns, just the dice were not favorable to him.
No, he just kind of shit the bed on that one. He
Yeah,
needs a timeout.
I mean, there's no other way to describe it, but Obulus will take a Shadow Like. He's going to Puppet Master Vet Gutter to send her way away from the scrum, and then is just going to jog away to get back out of trouble.
And that really hurts your feelings.
Unfortunately,
Gutter
I
being
can't blame
behind
him.
your line, that's So then John jogs the dog over, drops the ball in front of Vet Gutter.
Just kind of setting her up to get back into the game. So
yeah.
And Dixon's just checking some distances to Boar, thinking about his life with Casket. But what he's going to do is he's going to jog over. He's going to put a ghostly visage around himself, and then he's going to bonus time a heavy burden onto Boar and lands it. So Boar is now really slow, which is not a happy Boar in any shape, form, or fashion.
No, that's bad. No, Boar can't do anything, and he's got 2 influence. I mean, the good news is you've only negated 2 influence on that, but that's a lot of damage that he's going to be missing out on this turn.
And frequently at least 4 to 5 momentum gain too, depending on what Boar ends up taking.
Yeah.
It's a huge loss to him. He really gets a lot out of that.
Yeah. So John goes, he sprints up Gutter, and she passes to Brisket. He banks the momentum.
So momentum is at 2 to 1 for Dixon still. John just has not been able to get any attacks off this turn. And lost 3 influence on Nox, unfortunately for him.
Yes.
So Pelage is going to jog up next to the Vet Gutter. Ends up doing on 2 attacks 4 momentous damage to Vet Gutter. And then Stokes will choose to take 3 damage onto Vet Gutter and Brisket rather than have them snared.
Yeah, that's a really good choice, because being snared is going to hinder Brisket's move. He does have a banked momentum. He could clear that. But right now, he probably knowing that Boar is not going to go anywhere, he needs to bank as much momentum as he can. Just to try and mitigate some of his loss of influence.
Well, and right now, neither one of those. Vet Gutter did take a little bit of damage, but neither one of them's in particular danger. Vet Gutter's is about half life. Brisket, I think, has about 13 boxes, somewhere in that range.
She has 12, and she just took 3, so she's probably sitting on 9.
But since she's a 5-1 against most of his lineup, that's not a bad stat line.
Not at all. So then, after the Pelage activation, John moves Brisket, passes to Boar, who only dodges a little bit, and then hits the Dirty Knives on Casket,
taking him to a 2 to 1 and getting him nice and poisoned. And then Vile Swarm charges Brisket, who burns her unpredictable movement to avoid the charge, and see some measuring out there for Bonesaw's threat range, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, Bonesaw goes for miles now.
Yeah, especially with midfield general, he's got a 6 and then a 6 jog and then an 8 sprint. That's a long ways.
Yeah. So then John attempts to go with Vet Boar, not realizing the effects of both heavy burden, the stank aura from Casket, as well as Ghostly Visage. Vet Boar is not going anywhere.
And then Bonesaw just sprints into Brisket, and if you want to go ahead and pause now. So I think that turn pretty much just went Dixon's way. I don't think that John, unfortunately, not realizing the full Casket effect, just didn't get anything out of what he wanted.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I mean, he ended up losing um, 5 influence just on not being able to do anything with Boar, putting 3 on Vetox and having him tossed. But then he lost an additional 4 off Vet Gutter when she really got thrown back.
He basically lost about, what, 2/3 of his influence for the turn, effectively.
Yeah, I mean that's 9 out of his 13 that he lost.
And unfortunately, I mean, the thing that really hurts for him is he just simply didn't know with Ghostly Visage and everything. He kind of says it in the audio when it's cut out here, but that he hadn't really played into Morticians, so it's just simply a combo he didn't know anything about. He wasn't
Yeah,
ready for it.
and that's kind of the risk you go when you don't get your full matchups and or practice all the matchups you can.
Well, and what
That's
really sucks is knowing that even he could have still got an end to Casket because he still had a jog, and he had the dodge off of Brisket's pass.
yeah,
So he had multiple ways that he could have very easily gotten Boar up into it. I mean, it sucks. I know that's the way it goes sometimes, but it really does hurt.
yeah, and he could have, like you said, he could have just jogged up and um and took 4 swings, but not knowing and declaring the charge. That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I mean there's not much you can do about that, unfortunately.
No, not at all.
Um, but the good thing for him is that Dixon's squad is a little bit split up, whereas he still kind of got Boar Central, and now he has Casket. There should be no way Casket gets out of this one at this point. And he does also have Brisket with the ball, although Bonesaw might have something to say about that. Especially because Dixon is up on momentum going into the next turn.
Yeah, Bonesaw might even with Bonesaw's tackle being, what is it, on 1
Yeah, against a
um
5-1.
against a 5-1 with 5 tack, like he's still probably gonna have a hard time getting the ball off and away
Oh,
from her.
absolutely. And he can't move. He can't take a stamina jog because otherwise she's gone at
Yeah,
that point. So no, that's probably the safest possible spot he could have the ball because only Obulus with his Puppet Master really reliably gets the ball off of Brisket with
yeah,
much ease.
yeah. I mean, 4 dice, not having to deal with the armor.
Yep, everybody appreciates that. So for the next round, Dixon plays fullback,
John plays lone striker.
and Dixon actually missed that. Didn't realize that the momentum was such that if John played a 7, it would be tied. So they have a roll off, but Dixon, very happily for him, not so happily for John, does win the roll off.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think he had a pretty good goal angle lined up potentially, but um, so Dixon puts 4 on Bonesaw, 4 on Obulus, 4 on Vetgraves, and 1 on Pelage.
And John puts 2 on Vet Boar, 3 on Vet Ox, 2 on Brisket, 4 on Boiler, and 1 on Gutter.
So we're going to see Bonesaw is going to try to tackle the ball from Brisket, hits on the first one, tackles the ball back, then he gets a miss and he gets a tackle on the third one. Jogs around, careful to stay within 1 inch, and he shoots and he scores. Takes the momentum to 2-0 for Dixon, and the score is 6-2 in favor of the Morticians. So we were talking about that 5-1 stat line, but still, it does happen. It was
Yeah.
close. It was pretty close, but I mean, I ran the odds on it, and it wasn't too unlikely, and he did miss 1 attack. So with 3 opportunities and still getting the shot, it wasn't too bad for him.
Nah.
But we're kind of looking at John kind of kicks the ball back to what he thinks is the safest spot, which is pretty much where Obulus has no chance of getting to it.
Yeah, and that's, you want to keep it away from Obulus. Bonesaw's already went. He could still Puppet Master Bonesaw back over to it.
Yeah, but it
But
doesn't really. That means he's not manipulating the opponent's squad. So
yeah,
honestly, John's probably perfectly happy with that.
yeah,
Also, Vedox did come back on the board from just below the goal marker. That's what you see being lined up right now. As well as him looking because he's constantly checking Obulus's Puppet Master, which is pretty much what you have to do. Um,
so then it looks like John goes and pushes Pelage out with Vet Gutter, and then jogs over towards Vet Boar. Just make
just
sure to stay in cover.
And Pelage did declare the counter, but got pushed out, trying to get Vet Gutter well out of range of Graves, if possible. So in response, Pelage jogs up, does Momentous 2 damage to Boiler, and John chooses Snare on both Boiler and Pelage. And then Princess jogged up into Pelage and took 3 damage from getting in melee range.
Yep.
And then we have Vile Swarm charging Vet Boar, does 3 damage and gains 1 momentum off of it.
Yeah, and then Boiler is gonna Boiler goes on a Pelage, knocks her down, and through the course of the attacks, deals 9 damage or 8 damage. No momentum, unfortunately, due to the empathy. And he forgot to buy Berserk, so he just kind of jogs away.
Yep. So instead of having 6 attacks, he only had 4, which I
Yeah.
think that would have been the difference probably.
Yeah.
So Obulus Puppet Masters Boiler and jogs him up towards Graves, setting him up nicely. Or at least nice for Dixon.
Yeah. That's definitely nice for Dixon. So then John retaliates a little bit with Vedox into Bonesaw. He ends up killing Bonesaw, triggering the owner. And so Bonesaw is out of it.
And he picked up the ball and then redropped it again too.
Yeah.
So Vet Graves is going to take his 1 influence charge on Boiler. He hits the knockdown they ain't tough on Boiler, who did Death Stance. And he's going to do an additional 6 damage and gain 3 momentum off of it. 2 of which he uses to clear Pelage's conditions. Since Pelage was knocked down and sitting right in a bad spot.
Yeah, and she was also bleeding because of crucial artery from Boiler.
Oh, that's true. That would have killed her.
That would have killed her. And then Vet Boar goes.
I think I have something wrong here in the notes because he gets a Berserk, so I'm not exactly sure what I missed in here.
Okay, I would have. He probably took the 1 damage. He had to have taken damage, obviously, to get the Berserk.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what happened exactly. I lost a little bit of notes and I lost a little something in there.
Okay.
But he did. I know he charges Casket.
Yeah, and looks like he's blowing Casket up here pretty hard.
I think he wrapped on almost every attack on Casket.
Yeah, that's. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like he brings Casket down to reanimate.
Yep. I think if he had 1 more attack on Casket, it would have been enough. But
yeah.
So Casket jogs near Brisket and heals for 4.
And then, so he's got the. Yeah, he's moving Brisket over to snap the ball. And then she walks up to Casket and starts swinging. Looks like she does 4 damage and 4 momentum. Um,
And there was a counter declared, but the counter entirely missed.
that's not completely unlikely. 5 tack on a 5/1.
He did forget to buy Berserk. Um, he forgot to get the Berserk again. He kind of states in there. But more importantly to him, the clock lead for Dixon is 13 minutes at this point.
Yeah, that's, oh my goodness, that's pretty huge.
Yeah, that clock lead is that's just inexperience, honestly.
Yeah,
That's simply all it is. John hasn't played Vet Boar before, and watching this in real time, and it's a little hard to see on here and the sped up version, but you can tell his mechanics aren't solid. I've played John before, and normally his measurements are crisp. He knows where he wants to go. This is the first time playing somebody, and you're playing in a 24-person tournament.
yeah. I mean, and John is no slouch of a player, and he is. I don't know. He's just getting outplayed here by Dixon.
I mean, there's something to be said for experience level.
Yeah. I mean, forget it. I mean, with Vetbor and forgetting the Berserk, I've done it a few times, and God, it feels bad, man.
And like forgetting the Berserk on Boiler, which probably would have been enough to knock off Pelage.
Yep.
And then forgetting it on Brisket, which she did four momentous damage. Casca did have singled out, so she was getting some wraps, which helped her get the damage up. She might have actually been able to kill Casket had she taken the Berserk. So it
Absolutely.
cost him not just 2 points, but it also cost him some board positioning, potential kills. It really limited a lot of his options.
I mean, O'Brisket has Momentous 2-on-2.
Yep.
So if he had bought Berserk, um, then well, he only put 2 on Brisket, so it looks like he only would have gotten the 2 attacks.
My note may have been wrong. It was 3 on Brisket.
Oh, 3 on Brisket. So yeah,
Yep.
that would have been
My
4
note was
attacks.
wrong. But also, I was a little surprised he didn't go ahead and try to get the goal with Brisket right there. I mean, I understand wanting to get the kill, but I actually think the goal probably helps his win condition more
Um,
than trying to worry about getting that kill.
well, with Bonesaw being recently taken out, I'm actually, I would probably do the same thing and try and wait to see where he positions Bonesaw before I went for the goal. That way,
Okay.
I have a way to lock down Bonesaw, or even try and kill him yet again.
Yeah. I'm also going to mention, and I think this is a mechanics thing, and I'm not trying to rag on John, and I hate to keep saying this, but I think he forgot the owner
Oh yeah. Um,
because Casket definitely dies then.
yeah. If and that looks to be, yeah, he's definitely, Brisket is definitely within owner at that point, because you got 8 inches between the two, and then she's not completely on that line, and he's a little bit over that line. Yeah, he. Oh man, that's a shame.
Yeah, and the thing is that she dodged in, but he was hitting the 2 double dodge regularly at the top of her playbook. So
Yeah,
even if he was down 1 attack, he could have easily dodged back into the owner and be kicking that 3 damage each time. In
yeah,
which case, again with buying Berserk, that definitely results in Casket dying. Maybe honestly, possibly Vile Swarm too at that point,
yeah,
depending on how hot the dice are going. So. And that's just, again, I hate to say it, but it's repetitions and getting used to
yeah.
things that I'm sure he would never miss outside of the fact that he hasn't played them very much.
No, I think if he remembers that, most definitely, um, Casket is dead, and because Casket is sitting on 7 before she swings on him, so she takes away the healthy healed. So he's sitting
Yep,
on 3 now, and if she swung 3 times, that's
3
there's
damage.
yep,
That's the kill right there.
that's the owner. 1, 2, 3.
And Casket's slow enough that I mean he probably comes back in near the ice, I guess, to get a little speed, but he's still not going to be back in the middle of things very quickly.
No.
So moving into round 4, momentum is up 6 for Stokes. Stokes plays Grudge Match.
And Dixon is playing Seize the Initiative.
So, if you want to cover John, sorry.
Yep. So, John ends up dodging. Oh, we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh no. Yeah, they took a. John was always thinking a little harder about his plot cards in the middle. So,
Yeah,
although Dixon had a possible take back too.
and I like this play by John because I'm a huge fan of Grudge Match.
Oh, it's a card that has a risk to it, but it definitely has. If played at the right time, it's huge.
Yeah. So John dodges Vet Boar up and singles out Casket, which I'm not sure if Casket's probably my single out target at this point if he's on 3.
And Dixon singles out Vet Gutter and dodges Obulus up. Um, oh, it's actually Butcher's in the lead this time. Sorry.
Yep. And so John puts 2 on Vet Boar, 3 on Brisket, 4 on Boiler, 1 on Vet Ox, and 3 on Gutter.
And Dixon goes 7 Obulus, 4 Graves, 1 Casket, 2 Vile Swarm.
So John starts swinging up with Vet Boar. His first attack misses. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
And then John does. It says 3 damage and stagger here, but I imagine
That's one. It's 1 Guild Ball and then a 2 on the next attack.
Okay. So he did the one stagger plus the Momentous 2.
I just combined results for simplicity, so we're not reading off every result.
Fair enough.
So we've got an Obulus Shadow-like to get away from Boar. He's going to walk to the edge of Vet Gutter's range with melee, and dodges off of her, especially because she's got singled out. And then is going to bonus time a Puppet Master pass on Brisket. And it succeeds. Then he bonus times a shot and scores to go up 10-4.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. As soon as he saw that angle, he just didn't even contemplate not going for it.
Yeah. No, that's. So he put the ball in a pretty precarious spot with Bonesaw sitting there.
He got the worst scatter possible, 6 inches to the 1.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. So then he goes with Brisket and deals 6 damage to Vile Swarm. And then dodges.
So I cut a couple of notes here.
Yeah. He's looking to where he can get to Boiler. And
he also has to
probably.
Oh, sorry. That's exactly what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
He's clearing Boiler's conditions, clearing Vet Gutter's conditions also, and had to take a parting blow from Obulus. So he was seeing what Obulus's likelihood of hitting the knockdown was.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Not good on a 5-1. Turns out
he needs 5/5s. So.
Yeah.
And with Bonesaw only having 3 influence, the chances of stealing the ball off of Brisket were not good. But
yeah.
So Dixon's gonna take Vet Graves, does 3 damage knockdown. They ain't tough to Vet Gutter.
So this time, John is kind of contemplating what he's going to do here.
Actually, I think we're still on Dixon, aren't we?
No, Dixon just went. So this time he remembers to buy Berserk on Boiler. And he ends up killing Pelage, which is great, but he only gets 1 momentum.
Yeah, for the kill.
Yeah, for the kill. And I'm not sure what he was checking the 6. Oh, he's walking over to Graves to pop off a couple more swings into Graves. There he is.
And Vile Swarm's gonna charge and do a furious 6 damage to Vet Gutter.
Vile Swarm seems pretty good.
Yeah, Vile Swarm's solid.
So John's clock, he has clocked at this point, which is very bad.
Yeah.
So he moves Vet Ox up. He's swinging Obulus. He does 5 damage to Obulisks, and then clock's over. No point.
And scores 11-6 in favor of Morticians.
Yep.
Dixon just sprints Bonesaw. And at this point, we can just kind of sum it up that nothing else he does is going to matter.
Nah.
He technically attacks with Vet Gutter, but really...
Yeah. I mean, Gutter just wiggles, and game's over.
Yep. So...
I think
it's
give John a little
12-6
bit
for
more...
Mortician.
Yeah. I mean, well played by Dixon. Really well played. Give John a little bit of time with Butchers, and he's going to be a scary opponent, man. If he can just not forget buying Berserk and remember the owner.
Yep.
Whew.
Well, and yesterday, we're recording this on April 21st, and John actually won the small tournament down in Columbia, South Carolina yesterday. And it sounds like his vet board game has upped considerably since he did this.
Yes, it has. Actually, I played John second round there. And the night before or a couple nights before, we were sitting around table drinking and talking, specifically about vet boar and how I run him. And John didn't tell me anything about how he ran him, so it was a very big surprise when I got out down there and he busts out Brisket and decides to play some football on me, and he took that one pretty handily over my hyper aggressive vet boar. I want to fight you, and he didn't want to fight. He just wanted to score goals. So he beat the snot out of me in that game.
I mean, that's especially with Brisket. I think we talked about this once, that Brisket results in that team basically maxing out on influence with a single goal. So automatically that's already a leg up anyway. But when you add in the fact that he's playing a completely different style than what you were expecting, that's going to add up.
Yeah, it really did. And if John decides to watch this, if we play in Spring Fling, man, watch out. I know you're tech now.
Well, you know what? I'm going to make sure to mention this to him just to get him over there. But
Yeah.
I know we talked a lot about John because we were talking about things that he could have done better, but I also do want to give Dixon credit. Dixon played it exactly the way he wanted to. He had his game plan. He enacted it. He got a little bit unlucky not to get Ox off the pitch early, but he had his backups layered. He had Vet Graves in position. He pulled Vet Ox where he needed him with Obulus. He had everything lined up the way he needed to, so he always had a next out. He played it
and he's
very mechanically precise.
Yeah, he is also the only Morticians player that I've seen play Vileswarm, and he plays Vileswarm really, really well. Making he also full advantage of that Furious, and if he does get killed, even if Vileswarm does get killed, he seems to always be in a position to where he can hit 2 to 3 of the enemy players with the explosion.
Yes. He plays him the way that I actually used to play Flask when I was playing Alchemist, which is after he's done his support role, just trying to get him into a place where he's going to cause maximum chaos. And it's even better for Vileswarm because he's actually on a medium-sized base, if I recall correctly. I think he's on a 40-inch base rather than a 30, so he really can get in the way and be very intrusive. Dixon plays a very unique style. I haven't seen a lot of Morticians games in general, but I definitely haven't seen somebody that plays quite the way he does. Which also, for other models, you don't see very often. He said he rarely ever takes original Graves. He almost always leans towards Vet Graves. That's not something you see a lot out of most Morticians players.
No. I mean, especially, in Butchers, I think you can get away with without the damage amp of Tooled Up, because they're just average health models outside of Vet Boar.
Yeah.
But I really want to see how he handles higher health teams with Vet Graves, because I'm not sure if Morticians have the damage. And Dixon is masterful with the Morticians.
So I can actually speak to that a little. I know I've mentioned it several times in some of the other videos, but when I played him, because I was playing farmers, which is not quite the high. I don't know. They might be the highest health team on average. Um, but he went for ring outs where he could. I did spot him 4 points because I made a really poor decision that resulted in him getting the ball back and scoring a goal when he had kicked. So bad play on my part. I made a big mistake. Um, he just relied a lot on crowds. If I got somebody a little overextended, which I did a couple of times, he just got enough crowds to where even though he had low damage, he was getting wrapped around the playbook.
Okay,
Um, it like, and it took time. Like I overextended Fallow, and it took him most of his attacks over the course of 2 rounds, along with me healing a bunch. And Thresher's legendary. It took him 2 rounds to kill Fallow alone, but he also was doing the same very aggressive bonesaw play, chasing the ball, trying to get after it. Again, I spotted him 4 points, and that absolutely murdered me because I couldn't. I dragged the game back, but it just wasn't enough.
gotcha.
But he's good at taking advantage of what you give him. If you
Yeah,
feed him a little bit, or if you leave him a little bit of an opening, he'll put everything he can into capitalizing on it. Also, I wish it was recorded. God, I wish it was recorded. But what I did not expect was the combination of unexpected arrival and the unmasking to be as brutal as it was. Because he played Gast and Bonesaw against me, and I got some
oh,
people pushed around.
mm.
I was not ready for that. It was really tough. And
Mastery positions.
Gast upped his damage to a good point too, to where it was much easier to get through the health.
Okay.
But on that note, we're running a little long anyway over what I tried to target. But thank you very much for recording with me tonight, Steve. I appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem, Brian. Thanks for having me, man.
Yep, and thank you everybody for watching. And we will be back sometime the next week or two with round one of the Raleigh Warm-Up, and then that's going to be followed by a little bit of a break. But following that, we're going to record some games from How's That. That should be at minimum a 5-round tournament, maybe a 6 round. As of this time, it's got 54 players, so we should hopefully get some really good games coming out of that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun tournament.
Oh, I can't wait for that. But till next time, everybody have a good one.